Amika Cabral says, no matter how hard is the struggle against the enemy, the most difficult struggle is the struggle against our own weaknesses. South African labor relations, South African capitalism will basically thrive at the back of super exploitation of black and African labor. And the message we get from Marikana, from workers in deodorant and across vulnerable sectors is that the working class in this country is saying to all of us, enough is enough. And therefore it's time for us to go back to overalls. It's time for us to really be back in the regalia of the union. It's time to us to be there with workers. Otherwise, if we are not going to do that in the backdrop of our ANC that is refusing to implement fully the Freedom Charter, we're likely to have a rupture as union between us and our own members, and it's a rupture that the revolution cannot be able to afford. We have seen in the context of the NDP now, privatization is being brought back through a back door. They talk about concessioning, they talk about unbundling. The role of the state is being rolled back in the economy. And of course, I mean, as a working class, we are faced with real issues. We are confronted with e-tolls. We have been demanding that labor brokers must be banned.
What's going on?
A government of the people has got a duty to ensure that it intervenes in the economy, it takes ownership and control of the strategic commanding heights of the economy, and because that's the only way you can change power relations, that's the only way you can be able to address the national question, gender question, class question, which is at the core of the South African crisis that we're sitting in. It's time for government to begin to focus, to do things differently outside of the capitalist mode of production, in that we think that this country is rich, this country has got wealth. We must take ownership of those minerals. We must make sure that they are beneficiated here. We got steel in this country which is sold to us through import parity pricing. We're of the view that that steel we must take ownership of it. We must make sure that it is made available cheap to downstream industries so that we create jobs. We must ban, for instance, the exportation of scrap. We must impose export tax on our key strategic minerals. I mean, why should our national grid, for instance, suffer? We lost our competitive advantage on electricity, when in fact we got coal in this country. The national grid should be able to be supplied coal cheap, so that as a country we can actually champion manufacturing and industrialization if we are to make sure that we deal with the scourge of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. Unfortunately, the leadership we emerged with from Mangaung has basically continued to allow gear to be implemented, have continued to allow neoliberal policies to continue to benefit multinationals. They have refused, for instance, to actually take concrete measures. There was an ANC National Policy Conference where we participated. We took the movement very serious. We made our own concrete engagement to influence within the African National Congress as an alliance. And indeed, concrete decisions from commissions emerge. For instance, one decision that emerged was that we must nationalize strategic minerals. But when we arrive at the plenary to deliver the report, suddenly leadership in the distance from the commissions to the plenary doctored those resolutions, altered those resolutions. They now added new condition. Nationalization can only happen if it is appropriate to do so, if there is a balance of evidence to do so. When we arrive in Mangaung, again, we participated, we attempted to remove those conditions, and we were told that no, don't tamper with those conditions, leave the resolution as it is. But when we got to the plenary, everything that had to do with nationalization was completely removed. For us, that's not democracy. We think that the COSATU process, which now has basically focused on Zwelinzima Vavi, to attack him, to weaken him, to try and pass a vote of no confidence on somebody who have been recently been elected, we saw all that as nothing else but an onslaught against the working class, to weaken it, to fragment it.
To the families of more than 45 people killed in the course of the Loni Impala dispute.
And Numsa is being defined as demagogue, populist, everything else you could think about, which is why it is going to be important to appreciate that if we are to succeed to deal with this rough patch and an onslaught on the working class and the high levels of arrogance, the only hope of the working class are those few affiliates who remain very resolute in making sure that the working class agenda is not being compromised. For metal workers, it is time to appreciate that we must be bigger than ourselves. We must appreciate that we've got a federation that is championing a revolution, but that federation is basically being attacked. Very few COSATU affiliates are not being penetrated, are being weakened to ensure that they don't carry forward that particular program.
It's a national blueprint, lauded by government, business and civil society. COSATU has reservations about the plan, labeling it pro-capital, conservative and a blow to the manufacturing sector.
We think that metal workers played a crucial role to basically to unpack the NDP. GIA have grown into 400 and something pages in the form of the NDP. What is happening there is an onslaught on the working class. Hard and won gains during dark days of apartheid are being reversed. In fact, the labor market must be fragmented, collective bargaining must be attacked, and in fact, everything else which trade unions have fought for during dark days of apartheid is now basically being challenged by the NDP. We are a union that since its existence, we've always linked shop floor struggle with community struggle. It is time, therefore, to be more resolute, to be consistent. But if we are to succeed to do that, it's going to require that starting from a shop steward committee in the shop floor, to go to local shop steward council, to local office bearers, to the union nationally. If there's one thing that we must preserve as metal workers is our own unity. If there is something that you do not like about any particular comrade, it's high time to sit down with him and talk to him. We can give the enemy no quarter. We cannot open up space out of differences that are not political. We can't be chasing lizards whilst crocodiles are against us. And if we are to mobilize the working class, our unity must be sacrosanct. we must go back to basics. And going back to basics means that all of us, we must prioritize quality service to members. We must once more make sure that metal workers own and control their union. And the only way they do that is to elect shop stewards that they trust. When those shop stewards are elected, they must basically operate on the basis of mandate and accountability. Shop steward every day must address tea time, lunchtime, general meeting. It can't be that a day can pass by. You have nothing to report when in fact workers have got problems in the point of production. Shop steward must continue to take up all those issues. They must attend local shop steward council because that's where they can be able to share with other workers the frustrations that they are experiencing which are experienced by their members in their plants. Other shop stewards who come from different plants will help them to get alternative how to solve those problems. But also they must go beyond NUMSA. They must attend COSATU local shop steward council. Well, that's the only way we can be able to begin to hegemonize. But above all, we all know that if you're not political, you're dangerous. There can be no revolutionary movement forward without revolutionary theory. All of us, we must be humble. We must serve the organization. We have been privileged. There's nobody who's got the right to occupy any particular position in the union. We're making a contribution because workers for now have appointed us. We got a duty to be humble. If you are an LOB, you're a regional leader, your duty is to make sure that you win hearts and minds of everybody, your staff, your team, and right from an administrator, all of us who must further the aims of the National Union of Metal Workers. And the beneficiaries of every effort when we're at work must be metal workers in the shop floor. You are a NUMSA shop steward if he works at Toyota, if he works at VW. You are a NUMSA shop steward at VW. You are not a VW shop steward. I must say that there is no replacement, for instance, for collective leadership. It is important for comrades to say, look, we're working this week. What are the issues are we going to tackle as a collective at the level of the region? Same applies at the local level. And there must be a dynamic link between the regional leadership and the local. And all of us, we must prioritize a member. If in a particular plant, there is a problem that is burning, local organizers can't go there when they do not know in their mind what do they think is the solution. In other words, before you visit a plant as a local organizer, at least in your mind you should have entertained what is it that you think is your solution. But having arrived in that shop steward committee, first that very shop steward committee must work collectively, must work in a uniform fashion. If a shop steward has received a problem from workers, he must share that problem with the rest of other workers. And when they brief the local organizer must listen. What do workers think how that problem can be resolved? The combination of the local organizer, the local shop stewards, the views of members must be able to give us a position which the union can approach management and to bargain for. When we finish to present to management, we must go back to workers and give them feedback. They must be part of solution. NUMSA is a militant revolutionary union. NUMSA is a fighting union. You can't have shop steward, LOBs, local organizers working between management and workers without actually making sure that within no time, if management is stubborn, it does not address problems, they must follow the proper procedures and make sure that workers are given a strike that is basically protected and workers can use their power to embark on a strike action to defend their gains and to fight to improve their condition. That must be a holy task as we engage at the present moment. We have set ourselves a target for 400,000 membership. We go all out, and I mean it, to visit industrial areas, to recruit workers, to work on Saturday and Sunday, to have teams who work at night, because if you recruit garage workers, you can't actually think that they are so confident to openly join the union when the bosses intimidate them during the day. So during the night, you could have time to build their confidence, to explain their rights, because knowledge is power. All of us, we must stay to our hands, make sure that there's no social distance between the union, shop stewards, the leadership of the organization. It's time to subordinate to members, and members must feel that they own and control their own union, but not for the sake of just owning. The union must address those immediate challenges that affect workers. We must give confidence to workers such that workers are able to say, this union is my union, I've got these challenges, it has not yet addressed, but I've got confidence that it will indeed address this particular problem.